Dura Europos was a desert city on the edge of the Euphrates in Syria, a heavily fortified western extension of the Iranian Parthians, a town encampment for Roman troops guarding the eastern boundary of the empire. ROTAS squares were found on 3 of the garrison walls. The city fell to the invading Sasanians in mid-3rd century A.D. Depopulated and deserted, it was buried intentionally by the Romans, assisted by the ever-roaming desert winds. The chance discovery by British troops in 1920 of fragments of mural painting brought it to the attention of French and American archaeologists, who converted the desolate town in the course of 12 campaigns from 1920 to 1937 into one of the famous archaeological recoveries of the 20th century. The discovery of antiquity's best preserved synagogue brought attention to the excavations of Dura Europos. And now, Dr. James Handlin.
Each of the 3 languages, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, with their alphabets, can be used to interpret this SATOR square. So let's begin with the Hebrew-Aramaic interpretation. And of course, that would have appealed to the Jewish War Office Roman soldiers. They would have been very interested in this and would have been responsible for putting the SATOR square up in the War Office. And coming down into the opera ROTAS, the ever-changing creation, and we're coming up from the ever-changing creation all the way up to Feret into the tree of life and into the stillness and light of the upper SATOR region of the square. And this was the possible practice, that these soldiers were using as they worked with this SATOR square in the War Office. The Latin approach to this square is to start with the N right in the center of the square and go down, descend into the ET of E of opera and the T of ROTAS, and then over to the TAS, and we get netas, Netas, or natus, birth. Birth into everything. The opera, the creation, ever-changing, ROTAS. But if we begin to ascend, we can go right up out of ROTAS into the ER of opera, and again go up, and we get re plus the natus. So we go up to the T of SATOR and over to the AS from the very first line of SATOR. And now we have re, R-E-N-E-T-A-S, or rebirth. And so the process is going down into and coming up, which is what we've seen both in the Hebrew and in the Greek.
Okay, so let's look at a third square that is in the Roman War Office in Dura Europa. So we've looked at the ROTAS square there and talked about it and the sort of angle of knowledge that it gives us. We looked at the SATOR square. And by the way, in the SATOR square, just to make the point, the ET also is in Latin means and. So if we were to come into this square and say pen, right? Pen is all, many. Et meaning and one. So the one, n, pen, the many, et. One and many, or many and one. And what's so interesting is that a little tiny linkage like et, meaning and, contains so much, and we're going to come to see that in this particular square. So look at this. This looks like it's a completely different square, that this is something completely new when actually it is not. So let's take a look at the letters here that seem very odd. And so we'll look at the P, which we know is an R. And we've seen evidence of that. And we know that that's a key. So that's the letter R. So R-O-T-A, and this C is the letter S in Greek. And in Greek, as a last letter, it would have a little hook here. Now, what's interesting about this square is that the person who made up this square and put it on the wall in the War Office wanted it also to be a Roman C. So we have two things here. We have the letter S, right? So S-A-T-O-R, SATOR, or R-O-T-A-S, ROTAS. But also this C, and we're going to see why as we start to take this square apart. Now, the second odd letter that we have is this letter, which is a pi. Right? We know that letter from mathematics. So that's a pi, but it also is going to function as an M. So if we look at the letter here, I'm going to turn it over, and there we have an M. So it's going to be both pi and M. So with that in mind, we're going to take this, and I'm going to go through it a few times so you'll get used to the letters, and then we'll look at how this contemplation of this square brings another way of another angle, another way of looking at the ROTAS square. So ROTAS, and we just pretend, of course, that's an S, but it's also a C. But let's keep it as an S. So ROTAS, ROTAS, and let's go from here. SATOR, SATOR. So we have the two squares that we've already looked at, the ROTAS square and the SATOR square contained here, plus we have the S functioning also as a C, and the P that was here functioning as a pi and as an M. All right, so just for fun, because we've been working at the top of the square, let's go down and look at the bottom of the square. And also we're going to come back, I haven't forgotten that we're going to come back to this ET, and this connection. And is very important because it's relationship. Okay, so let's take a look here. If this were to be a C, we get some very interesting insight into the contemplation that the person who put this square up. So C, A, and we know the T can also be a D. So here it is with the D, the original D that's on the square in Pompeii. C, A, D, O, and this is now S or SH, kadosh, or holy. So this is going to be a deep look into holiness, if you want. Holiness is just another name for wholeness, integrity, oneness. So, kadosh. Also, we can come back up here and take a look here. It's the same as if we looked at it here. C-A-R-T. Remember, vowels are fungible, changeable. Cartus. Cartus, which is C-A-R-T-U-S. Cartus is the Roman word for a cart. It's a heavy-duty cart. It's a car. If you want, this refers back, if we take both things, so here's the cartus here, the car, and the kadosh. This is the holy car. This is Ezekiel's car. This is the mercy car, if you want, that's talked about. We would talk about it perhaps as an inner body and subtle body of some sort. And this car is going to be part of the contemplation that takes place as a result of looking at this square. So what is it going to look at? Well, it's going to look at the Etz, the tree of life, E-T, the Hebrew. So this is someone using Latin and Greek, but approaching something that was Hebrew, certainly thinking about a number of things, but could also be thinking about the book of Revelation that has this cart, that has this special cart that Ezekiel talked about. So the Etz, the tree, from this perspective, is being climbed by this inner body. So there's this inner experience of climbing through the 10 stations of the tree. So let's take a look at where we're starting from with the cart in terms of now the Kabbalah that's being used here. So we have on the tree the station that is, if we go up the middle of the tree, the station that's being talked about in this square is Tif, right? Remember, this is pi. Tif, R, the E as an A, R, at. Tiferet. tif, et. And that's surrounding this oneness. So the journey is Tiferet. Further to go up this tree, one moves toward what's called Keter. So C-E, or we can go this way, C-E-T-E-R. That's the crown. That's the top of the tree. So the journey here, this inner journey, is toward kingship. And Keter, K-E-T-E-R in Hebrew. So it's a journey toward climbing the tree and, in a sense, having the wholeness, the integrity of what this person putting this square up saw as the possibilities for a human being. In a sense, all three squares talk about our human heritage, our possible, if you want, being and states of being that are possible for us. So this is, we could say, the most esoteric of the three squares, and it's disguised so that this knowledge was kept very, very secret. The top of the tree, Keter, the process of getting to the top of the tree through the car, through the inner body, and the tree itself.